name is Annie Quintana. I'm a youth leader with the Lab Learning Action Buffet and a member of the Lab's Radio Hour. Today, I am joined by Ethan Sullivan. Thank you, Ethan, for agreeing to be interviewed today as part of our Youth Voice Matters project in partnership with Generation Justice in Albuquerque. The main purpose of this project is to elevate youth voices in southern New Mexico at this critical moment in history. As you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic and an uprising calling out and calling for an end to racism in the United States. We'd like to hear from you in terms of how you're dealing with all. So, how about we dive right in? First of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your identity?
Yeah, so I am a senior at New Mexico State University, and I'm studying communication and political science. I was born in a small town called Whitefish, Montana, but was raised about 7 hours north of here in another small town called Durango, Colorado.
A little more known small town. So, can you tell us a little bit more about some of your hobbies and your interests?
Yeah, so right now I'm very much interested in the political landscape, and especially here in New Mexico. I've done work on several campaigns, and right now I'm currently working on a campaign for a state Senate candidate named Naomi Martinez Parra here in District 35, and as an intern for that. And I just believe it's important to engage and to take part in our political process. And it's just the mentality I was raised with and fostered by. And it's just something I want to continue to do. And especially right now, it's a huge passion of mine. And I feel like we can't stay silent. We got to get involved and do whatever we can to help.
Wonderful. So, how are you doing, especially with the protests calling for an uprising to the end of racism?
Yeah, I think right now it's been, for me, I think something that I believe, going back to what I said earlier, the best thing to do is get involved, in the protests that we have to calling about the end for racism. It's important to get involved and hear about hear from the people who have been the most affected by it, and listen to them and find out what we can do to help going forward. That's how I've always learned, and what's always given me an idea about the best course of action. And especially right now, I feel like that's important more than ever as we go forward in this day and age with both the coronavirus and the protests that we have going on across the country.
Yeah. How have you been involved in the protests, may I ask?
I've been involved. So what I've been doing is I've gone to some Black Lives Matter protests up where I currently live, actually, which is Farmington, New Mexico. It's kind of my home base now. And I've gone to some Black Lives Matter protests there. And I've joined several Facebook groups, and I've been talking to even some local officials about what we can do going forward in order to bring about change that's been needed for a long time. And I believe, there is a direct correlation between this and the coronavirus, and that is, it's really exploited those disparities that we've had that have kind of been, maybe kind of more under the surface or kind of overlooked. And this has really quite exacerbated those issues and called for, and it's just, we need to look at that now, and we need to learn from that and see what we can do going forward. So.
Definitely. And I mean, there has been a lot of data, especially that's come out in New Mexico, pointing that out in our state as our ethnic and racial breakdown, but also across the country. And people are sitting home and being outraged, and that's what we need to be doing right about now.
Of course.
So, even though there are a lot of things that are looking grim right now, including the federal police that are storming American cities, what what are your hopes in the future? What are your hopes for the future?
I think my hopes for the future are that we learn from this, and that we can grow from this hardship that we're going through right now with the pandemic, and with these protests. That we can learn, we can listen to people, and we can see, we can identify things that we couldn't maybe clearly see before, and we can learn about what we can do to best help going forward, and what we can do to make America better for all. And I think, when we come out on the other side of this, that's what I'm hoping to be. That's what I want my takeaway to be, and that's what I hope everybody's takeaway is that, okay, we learned this happened, and this was really hard for us and our country and the world for that matter, but we learned these things from it, and this is what we can do going forward now. And I believe that's just the best course of action right now.
Definitely listening to each other, but right now we do not have necessarily the strongest leaders leading our country. I mean, there's been a lot of confusion and a lot of hatred brought up by these leaders who are not supporting necessarily the right things that need to be supported right now. Anyways, so what recommendations do you have as a young person who is in southern New Mexico and engaging in a lot of different political and nonprofit kinds of organizations on how to be making decisions that affect you and others close to you and close to aging you?
I think my advice would be just see what you can do to get involved, what nonprofit organizations you can dedicate your time to, and what protests you can participate in order to, learn from people and learn about what you can do to help and how you can make this country and like this state, better for all. And so I think that's always been my advice to people is get involved, and it'll just take off from there. And that's just the way to network. That's the way to meet people. And it's just the way to learn. But you got to get out there and you got to get involved. And there's so many opportunities out there and for people to do that right now.
Yeah. So as we close this out, do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience?
I think what I would say is just going back to what you said earlier. Yeah, this is, things are looking grim right now, and it's not the best place we've been in our country's history. This is with poor leadership and with the pandemic and, protests going on across the country. It's a tough time, but it's also this is also a really constructive time, and this is also something that I think we can learn a lot about who we really are as a country and what we've failed to do in many ways, and the people we've overlooked, the poor policies we've implemented, you name it, and I think what we got to do is hold that accountable, and that starts with getting involved and contacting your local and state officials, and seeing and calling them or holding them accountable, and then just seeing what you can do moving forward to make, southern New Mexico and then just, this country the best it possibly can. So, I think we will come out eventually and things will get better. We got to keep our heads up, but at the same time, be holding these injustices accountable.
Well, thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts around these important issues. Please visit the lab website, lablc.org, to see what we're up to, and please keep speaking out. Youth voice and positive action can make a real difference now and in the future. Take care.